My name's Sam. I'll be your minister today. Glad to have Diane with us. Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. All summer long in services led by ministers and by members, we're considering the theme, I am, we are, what's in a name. Today we consider the act of naming, providing, assigning, declaring a name. Scholar Sune Bortfeldt suggests naming is, in a way, the very first and most basic act of language, because it is what enables us to talk or write about something in specific terms. Let's continue our weeks-long reflection by considering today the act of naming. As we prepare to sing, please share your name with someone near you who does not already know your name.
A flaming chalice has been a logo and symbol for Unitarian Universalists since it was first used by Unitarian minister Charles Joy, who was stationed in Lisbon to help refugees from Nazism escape to safe havens. Each Sunday across the country, many UU churches begin their services by lighting a chalice, but there's no requirement to do so. There's no requirement that the chalice be uniform in design, and there's no single interpretation of the flaming chalice. Like our faith, it stands open to new and ongoing interpretation, representing our search for truth and meaning.
Our first reading this morning is from Michaela Janice Carter. Her article, The Power of Place Names, Embedding Bema Local Languages into the Australian Landscape. It's a bit long. We thought it was worth it. In July 2017, I flew across the Pacific Ocean to join a small but ambitious effort that was about to begin on the ancestral homelands of the Bema people, the Bema Place Naming Project. Bema is the local name used for the diverse First Nations people. Who has the power to name? Whose knowledge is privileged? The Bema Place Naming Project lifts the veil on the dominant narrative of this place. It's an effort to get the Bema names for the natural features in the region formally registered with the state. The stated goal of the project is to replace colonial names with Bema Place names to preserve and share the names, stories, and heritages of this bioculturally significant place. However, I came to see that the underlying agenda of the project is a subtle but powerful assertion of sovereignty. The name of a place is how we come to know it. If the names are changed, it will enable us to see the richness and the complexity of the worlds that have existed in and on this landscape since time immemorial. Many, if not most, of the official place names in the region now were either coined by Captain Cook or the colonial regimes that followed his invasion of the Bema lands. In contrast to this, most Bema place names are deeply linked to a living knowledge system, full of rich stories and Bema lore. In those cases, the names tell the story of a place and are instructive about how to be in that place. By formally embedding those names into the landscape, those of us who are not members of First Nations are able to transform our limited understandings of these storied places and the people who call this place home. The renaming of existing names and naming of unnamed places have the potential to provoke questions from the dominant culture that will lead to better understanding of the diverse social and cultural landscape. At present, the place names reflect the settler colonial narrative and allow the settler stories to dominate the political, cultural, and social landscapes as Bama people and stories are pushed further into the margins. If we change the names, perhaps we can change the story.
I'll name it a cow. Man gave names to all the animals in the beginning. In the beginning, man gave names to all the animals in the beginning. A long time ago, well, he saw an animal leaving a muddy trail. Real dirty face and a curly tail. He wasn't too big, but he wasn't too small. Other way. The thing I'll name him the pig.
Next animal that he did meet had a wool on his back and hooves on his feet. Eating grass upon a mountainside steep. Said I think I'll call it a sheep.
Man gave names to all the animals in the beginning. In the beginning, man gave names to all the animals in the beginning. Long time ago, he saw an animal as smooth as glass, slithering his way through the grass. Saw him disappear by a tree near a lake.
These words are by Susan Donnelly, titled, Eve Names the Animals. To me, lion was sun on a wing over the garden. Dove, a burrowing blind creature. I swear that man never knew animals. Words he lined up according to size. While elephants slipped flat-eyed through water, and trout hurtled from the underbrush, tusked and ready for battle. The name he gave me struck me to him. He did it to comfort me for not being first. Mornings while he slept, I got away. Pickerel hopped on the branches above me. Only Spider accompanied me, nosing everywhere, running up to lick my hand. Poor Finch, I suppose I was woe to him, the way he'd come looking for me, not wanting either of us to be ever alone. But to me, I was Palomino, raven, fox. I strung words together by stems and wore them as garlands on my long walks. The next day, they'd be withered. I liked change.
Without establishing official rules, when my wife Melissa and I knew that we were expecting, we started trying to come up with a name for our child. We believed then what we now know isn't true, that even before birth we could declare definitively whether our child would be a boy or a girl. Looking at those hazy ultrasound images, our midwife answered this either-or question: girl. So with that information and empowered by our responsibility as parents, we began discussing names. Getting to this stage had been difficult, a process marred by the grief of multiple miscarriages. Because of that, each new stage had a special thrill, including contemplating the name of our soon-to-be child. That's when we implicitly agreed on individual veto power. I recalled my loving relationship with my warm, feisty, wonderful maternal grandmother. How about Alma? Melissa made it absolutely clear that Alma was not a choice. I had the same clarity about her suggestion of Zoe. And so it went as we tried on and took off name after name in our pursuit of just the right name. Many of you have had this experience. Curious, isn't it, that among the opportunities, responsibilities, powers of parents, naming may have the longest lasting impact. A dubious gift given before or at birth that may endure until death. Many of us have had this same experience with a new pet. What shall we call our kitty, puppy, bird, rabbit, guinea pig, hamster? When I was in Berkeley, the city council there, evidently having resolved all the more pressing matters, voted to recommend that the nomenclature pet owners be changed to pet guardians. They did not, however, remove the human role as namers, as the ones with the opportunity, responsibility, power to name the animals for whom they serve as guardians. According to a primordial myth, that's an opportunity, responsibility, power granted to Adam, the man, in the beginning. The second of those creation myths included in Hebrew scripture, in the Hebrew scripture book of Genesis, we find this. So out of the ground God formed every animal of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all cattle and to the birds of the air and to every animal of the field. Kind of makes being a biblical literalist difficult right from the start. If we don't think that way, and I'm hoping it's safe to assume here that we don't, then we can always pose a more interesting question. Instead of, is that really true? We could wonder, what truth might these ancients have been trying to convey? What's going on in a story in which a human being is said to have had the power to name all of the animals? In traditional Jewish thought, a name is not an arbitrary thing, chosen simply by trying on different possibilities. A name conveys essence, the core nature of what is being named. The same worldview that tells a fanciful tale of Adam naming the animals also cautions against humans saying the name of God. The mythic message and all that? Humans have responsibility for the animals. Thus, we have the authority to give them names. Humans do not have power over God. Thus, we should avoid even the implication that we know God's real name, real essence, core identity. While some might find this at best quaintly esoteric and at worst utter nonsense, I'd actually welcome invoking this guideline, at least in public discourse. Too many, all along the ideological spectrum, urge public policy based on, they tell us, what God wants. For all of their drastic differences, both Franklin Graham and William Barber engage in this same practice. We should do a certain thing or not do a certain thing because of what God says, because what God wants. Each of them, and many others, claim to know God's name, God's essence, God's core intentions for humankind. I'd much prefer in the public arena an approach guided by the Jewish caution against naming. Don't name God for us. Don't tell us what God wants. Let's wrestle together. Let's find the most just and equitable approach. Let's invoke compassion while righting historic wrongs. And let's leave God's name out of it. Naming. At one level, it may seem like a relatively simple kind of thing, but naming is anything but simple. Boston University neuroscientist Johann J. John writes of naming, the act of naming is one of the central mysteries of human cognition. It's the visible tip of an iceberg whose depth below the surface of conscious thought we have only just begun to plumb. When we pause, as we are doing this summer, to really reflect on it, we realize that naming has emotional, cognitive, relational, political, sociological aspects. And as poet Adrienne Rich reminds us, language and naming are power. The ones who get to name, to choose the names for things, to engage in the act of naming, have and wield a great deal of power. Who gets naming rights? Who gets buildings and other things named after them? Who gets in on the act of naming and whose efforts to name are ignored, silenced, erased? Consider this story from late last year in the Washington Post. For nearly a year, journalist Renee Merrill explains, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has struggled to execute a controversial plan, changing its name. The watchdog agency has been known as the CFPB since opening its doors in 2011. But its former acting director, Mick Mulvaney, believed it should instead be called the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, or BCFP. You follow this? And Mulvaney started using the new acronym, BCFP, in public. Even the Bureau's seal and flag were changed. But the new name never stuck. Can't imagine why. The new name never stuck, and the Bureau's new director, Kathy Kraninger, ditched the idea. What's behind this particular act of naming? Merrill discloses the proposed name change was always controversial. Mulvaney, a longtime critic of the Bureau, called for its closure as a congressman. Not surprisingly, we learn that critics called the effort a costly stunt aimed at undermining the Bureau's identity. This article questioned whether this whole thing had something to do with the fact that a certain Harvard law professor came up with the idea for an agency to help protect consumers. The professor's name? Oh, it was Elizabeth Warren. Theologian Mary Daly, who described herself as a radical lesbian feminist, declares, women have had the power of naming stolen from us. Right? Right, Eve?
Diane.
Oh, Diane. We have not been free, Mary Daly says. We have not been free to use our own power to name ourselves, the world, or God. Our sexist, patriarchal, misogynistic society has long been reticent to let women have the full say, the complete and independent power to name their experiences for themselves. So, of course, strong women, strong, young, progressive, elected women who call a thing, who presume their capacity to name reality, of course they are likely to be a threat to the old established order on both sides of the political chasm. Now, yet again, we as a nation are struggling with how to name what and who is racist. Is it racist to try to silence, dismiss, or deride a woman of color by telling her that she should go back to where she came from? Was it racist for Reagan to mock welfare queens? Was it racist for Hillary Clinton to decry super predators? Many believe so. Many believe not. In an interview for the NPR show 1A, legal scholar Ian Haney Lopez, whose book Dog Whistle Politics has changed the way this conversation is had, offered a helpful observation. When we say, what is racism? We're better saying, what are racisms? And acknowledging they take many, many different forms. My intent today is not to come up with some definitive conclusion on that tricky question. My intent is to invite us to wonder about, to ponder a different question. Who has the power? Who has the authority? Who has the opportunity to name what is and is not racist? Whose definition, whose conclusions, whose experiences matter when wrestling with this fundamental concept? Just this week, I was caught up short by reading journalist Kira Davis bemoaning the use of the phrase women of color. She declares being a woman of color is not the same thing as being a black woman. And yet, the progressive left has decided that it is. Do black people get to name what they want and do not want to be called? Do white people get to declare the name by which they think black people should and should not be called? Should those in the dominant culture ever get to choose the names for the marginalized? Say for them what it is they have experienced, what it is they should appreciate, what it is they should not say. Who has the power, authority, opportunity to name anything and who does not? Oh, this naming business is indeed a tricky thing. Reflecting on her experiences with the Bama indigenous people of Australia, Michaela Janae's Carter wrestles with these questions. She asks, who has the power to name? Whose knowledge is privileged? When place names reflect the coercive tactics of colonial regimes, do First Peoples have the right to reclaim their names for their places? It's her concluding consideration that is worth pondering for today. If we change the names, perhaps we can change the story.
Growing up in California, it bothered me that my name was Bobby with a Y. People were always asking, did my parents want a boy? If they read my name, Bobby Jean, they'd say, oh, are you from the South? When I was 16, I started receiving postcards from the Army reminding me to register for the draft. Around that same time, my father shared a story that a man at work had a name that everybody shortened to a derogatory term. He said, if I had a name like that, I'd change it. But I was stuck with Bobby because my mother liked it. A decade later, I learned that we all have a common law right to change our name so long as there is no intent to defraud. So for my 30th birthday, I changed my name to Barbara, a name more suited to the professional career I aspired to have. Something that was not available, largely available to women when I was born. When my daughter was in college, she was dating a really wonderful young man with a very long Hungarian name. Looking to the future and emboldened by her women's studies classes, she chose a new permanent last name for herself, Zara, based on a mythical city in a novel. I had to work my way through college, and it took me 11 years to get my degree. But along the way, my daughter was born, and we both had her father's last name of Goskirk. When she was a year old, I was taking a class in US history, and the African-American professor was calling roll the first day of class. And when he got to Goskirk, he said, Goskirk, what does that mean? And I readily answered, it means Church of the Valley in Scottish. He said, how fortunate you are that you can be so proud of your last name when so many African Americans bear the names not of their ancestors, but of their enslavers. This was a teachable moment indeed for me, and one that has muted any pride I might take in a last name. We continue to want to learn more about your names, and no matter what your name or what you like to be called, we're happy you're with us today in this room or joining us remotely. We're always pleased to have guests with us, and our members would like to greet you personally following the service. So if you're visiting, if you please raise your hand and keep it up for a moment while our members look around and take note and invite you to join in for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, we offer large print order of service, personal hearing assistance devices, and we have an elevator. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place it in the offering basket. Later in the service, members with an event to share can do so on the reverse of that card. The cards and offering envelopes are on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them now. Visitors interested in learning about how to become a member can talk with our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, a very warm welcome.
There was a man who
incense you smell is the sulfur from hell rising.
There was a love that was clear as the day, and a babe like the flower that grows from the clay. But the devil said sin, and the people came in, and they offered the woman for sale to the men, and that was the devil's baptizing.
At the devil's baptizing, the incense you smell is the sulfur from hell arising.
There was a child who walked all alone and reached for the bread and rejected the stone. But the devil said crime, and the kid served his time, and he came out of prison all covered with slime, and that was the devil's baptizing.
At the devil's baptizing, the incense you smell is the sulfur from hell rising.
Late this spring, I said to my beloved colleague, John Herrick, our director of music, I really hope that you will take time off this summer, by which I don't mean plan a service, sneak out of town, rush back on Saturday night, and do music again on Sunday, as John often does. And John is away hiking the Adirondacks in New York, visiting with family, and he's on a 2-week leave, which is rare. And I'm delighted that we have the good fortune of working in a place that honors us with paid vacation and the opportunity to be away, and I thank you for that. And I thank you on behalf of my colleague for that. And when I told John that, I was ignoring the knot in my stomach, and I said, why don't you do that on a Sunday when I'm going to do the service, and who knows what will happen. And I've learned again how little faith I often have. What a remarkable gift you have been to us today. Thank you so much. To be able to just bring in members like this to do music like this is, I'm the envy of almost every other Unitarian Universalist minister I know. And like you, I've been sitting in these pews this summer and have been marveling at what we've been offering in the voices of our members. The words from Sharon Baker and Sandy Wade have stayed with me all week long as I have pondered again and again the great gift that you gave us. Thank you so much, and so many others of you here who have contributed so richly or will contribute to the experience that we're enjoying this summer as we reflect on this theme. Our day together continues. Step across and get some coffee or tea to take the chill off of this brisk day. And then join us downstairs in the Bernstein room. Rebecca Visco, our most recent board chair, will be offering her personal credo today, and it will be a rich experience, I assure you. That'll be following the service. Look in your order and you'll notice, as I do, what a remarkable array of activities. We've been offering so much for families, thanks to Eve Stevens and her commitment to family ministry. And another event on this Friday, a movie for families here. There's fun and games again on next Sunday following the service. We also, thanks to Martha Knisley and the Adult Religious Education and Spiritual Development team, have had an amazing array of opportunities, and that continues through August as well. You can go to the adult programming table and sign up for the offerings that are upcoming. We'll be a presence again this year at Charlotte Pride. I went ahead and got my sticker before the service. It's a subtle kind of display going on in Freeman Hall, so you'll have to look carefully to find it. But I trust you that you'll be able to find where the table is to sign up so that you can personally be a part of our warm and inclusive welcome as we appear again this year at Charlotte Pride. Our electronic newsletter, Currents, always available on our website, offers a much fuller description of just how much is happening here, all of which is made possible with our thanks by the generosity of our pledging and contributing members. We gather always aware that our lives are buoyed by great joy, by celebration. Today may mark some event in your life which brightens your day, gladdens you along your Sunday. We're aware that there are many of us here who carry always into every day the pain of the plight of a family member, a beloved friend, our deep concern, our deep care for those in decline. Today is no exception, and we're aware that any number of you are here in this room and you're carrying the weight on your heart of somebody about whom you care deeply. We hold with special love on this day Lisa Lackey. Lisa lost a beloved uncle who was a father figure to her after a long decline, and Lisa's away celebrating her uncle's life with her family. And we hold Lisa deep in our hearts and in our prayers as she grieves. If today does mark some special occasion of celebration, of concern, of remembrance, you're invited to come forward during the playing of the music as the offering baskets are being passed and light your own candle in silence. For now, I invite all of us to a time of meditation and aspiration. In a time filled with so much that is plainly and simply wrong, bad, goodness still abounds. In an age marked by brazen deceit, truth still abounds. In a world so marred with heartbreaking ugliness, beauty awaits at every turn. While seeking to name what is wrong, may we not fail to acclaim all that is and all who are good and true and beautiful. Good and true and beautiful. On these things, let us ponder and celebrate. Blessed be.
In my earliest memory of contributing to a church, I am 5 years old. I am walking about 6 blocks to church, holding in my hand 10 pennies tightly wrapped in a white handkerchief. I carried my treasure with pride because I had something to share with others. And I still remember that warm, fuzzy feeling I had unwrapping those pennies and watching them fall into the children's offering basket. I really enjoyed the Bible study, the Bible stories in Sunday school, especially the ones with the cutout felt animals as they made their way across the flannel board. But more than that, I liked the graham crackers and milk. And I was amazed that anybody other than my family would provide such a treat for me. Today, I pay my pledge by periodic check, but I've also grown accustomed to the practice of greening the plate with a small contribution of the folding variety, knowing that it at least contributes to the coffee or tea that I enjoy, and for that, it is a bargain. For the joy of giving and receiving, we now welcome the sacred communion of the offering. Please join me in an affirmation of our faith, rising in body and/or spirit. We are
Okay, babies, we start. Way up, boys, a wind away, a wind away, a wind away. Away up, a wind away, 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 way up, a wind away, 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 way up. Jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Near the village, the peaceful village, the lion sleeps tonight. Near the village, the peaceful village, the lion sleeps Hush, my darling, don't fear, my darling, the lion sleeps tonight. Hush, my darling, don't fear, my darling, the lion sleeps tonight.
It was the second night of the Charlotte uprising. I had met with a large group of clergy people, and we departed from that setting, and I fell in and happened to be beside Brenda Tyndall, who was at that time the staff historian at the Levine Museum. And Brenda and I started reflecting on what we'd heard from the then Mayor Jennifer Roberts just that morning, decrying the acts of the night before when the long simmering anger in this town boiled over. The mayor made it clear in saying something to the effect that Charlotteans don't act this way. Brenda and I reflected on what it means to be named outside the community in which you live, and what it means to be told that you aren't really a part of this community at the very time when you are trying to send the message that you don't feel like you're a part of the community. And we reflected on the irony that as we walked along McDowell Street from the Little Rock AME Zion congregation toward Marshall Park, that had we been taking that walk a few decades earlier, we'd have been heading into Brooklyn. The historic African-American community, thriving community, filled with churches and schools and businesses and beautiful homes that no longer exist because the city decided that property had a better use, and the property and the churches and the businesses and the homes and most importantly the name went away. Where is Brooklyn? Where is Brooklyn? It exists now only as a memory. And as long as we continue to send the message that people who don't behave the way we think they should behave aren't really ones of us, we cannot expect peace in this community because we will not have realized justice. Please be seated.
Taught your parents to mutter